about to hear a revolution in talk radio, Liberty Talk Radio, where the critical thinking will defrag your mind of propaganda-ridden viruses induced by mass media news programming. No BS here, just the facts.
And now we present to you America's quintessential iconoclastic anomaly. Wow. In talk radio, your host, Joe Cristiano.
Welcome, everyone, to Liberty Talk Radio, America's libertarian voice, broadcasting from our studio in the good old USA to around the world. I'm your host, Joe Cristiano, and this is your antidote to popular talk radio. Folks, it's time for us to take back control of our government now before this bureaucratic, oversized, and self-serving federal government starves us of our property, our freedom, our rights, and our liberty. But to do this, we must shed conventional thinking regarding our political structure. We need to be revolutionaries in thought, dissidents in action. Only after we recognize what our government is doing to our freedom and our Constitution will we start taking it back. And this program is just about that. Today, we're proud to have back as a returning guest, economist Andy Sutton. Andy is formerly of the financial community. However, now he spends his time for the sole purpose of blowing the whistle on corruption and helping people around the globe become their own advocates. Let's see where he is. Hold on, here we go. Andy, welcome to Liberty Talk Radio. I'm glad to see you there.
How you doing, Joe?
Fine. I'm doing well because we got all the bugs out of the studio, I hope, and we can do this on a regular basis now. So I'm really, don't say that, right? The computer may bite back. Well, Andy, we talked a few days ago, and I have to admit that I'm not totally clear as to what we're going to talk about, but I'll leave it up to you. Whatever you want to go with, please, let's go with it.
Well, I think the first thing, it's important to note what is going on here with regards to the national debt, which I'm just looking right now. It had another $480 billion added to it today. And so what we're seeing here is the rollout of modern monetary theory,
right?
Which is something that we talked about, well on a year ago anyway, maybe more. There's some misconceptions about what modern monetary theory is. A lot of people say that it was based on Keynesianism, but in truth, the book that kind of laid the foundation for that was written in 1905, which was 31 years before Keynes actually wrote his book. That led to this whole deficit spending model that we've embraced, along with most of the rest of the world. So Keynesianism was really a spin-off of this modern monetary theory. And the idea here is you print money, you borrow money, and you just keep doing this until you finally see a rise in prices, and then you apply some sort of a tax system to pull that extra money out. And you're constantly going back and forth. So it's like being in the shower, and the first thing you do is you turn it all the way up, right? Turn it all the way to hot. Well, then eventually it gets too hot, and then you got to turn it back down. Now it's too cold, and it takes a little while, and eventually you get this, this Goldilocks, what Greenspan and some of the others called the Goldilocks economy. It's not too warm, it's not too cold, it's just right. that whole thing. We haven't heard that one in a while.
That's right.
So this is being rolled out right now. And that's what is going on with these it seems like it's $1 trillion parade, 2 trillion here, another 4 trillion there. And everybody's just kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. No big deal. So right now, the exact or the present value national debt is 24,609 billion and so on down the line. So it has gone up by almost 3 trillion just over the last half a fiscal year since the end of September. So this thing's really taken off now. And this is what happens if you look back in history. This is what happens to fiat monetary systems at the end of the system's time. And that's why I think I showed it on your show. I know it's on the blog, that chart showing in time how long these reserve currencies have lasted, and the average is around 94 years, going all the way back to before 1500. So there's definitely a time component and a cycle to this, and that's what we're seeing here. So when you take your $2,400 stimulus payment and leave it in your bank or put it in your bank's going to turn around and lend out 90% of that if they can, and that's going to expand the money supply. And so we've seen this continuous, and all the curves, they look exactly the same. They all start out real low, and I'm trying to trace the right way on the screen, and then they go up. And that's what they're going now. They're in that phase where the slope is rapidly increasing. So we're going to see this continue. And if you listen to the Congressional Budget Office, they're supposed to be nonpartisan. You listen to Cato, any of these think tanks that are looking at this kind of stuff, and they're all saying, "Hey, this isn't gonna go." So what I'm looking at right now is, all right, what was happening before this whole virus situation? And we had a pattern. We had countries cutting deals outside the dollar. And I've actually had people tell me that that's a tinfoil hat conspiracy theory, that countries are cutting deals outside the dollar. It's not. The mainstream news has even reported it. It's not page, like page 3, 4, that kind of thing. You have to look a little bit, but you can find it. And obviously, that lowers the demand for dollars overseas. So I think what you're going to see coming out of this is even more of that. The more we print and borrow and do this kind of stuff, the more the rest of the world is going to start to fight back, just because they don't want to hang on. I mean, who's going to make a 30-year loan to an entity that has basically said, we're going to print and spend and borrow as much as we want, and that's what we're going to do? Would you give somebody like that a 30-year loan?
I wouldn't give them a 1-week loan.
No. And it's at interest rates that, the short end of the curve was negative.
Right.
For a couple of, we've seen crazy things. Short end negative yields on bonds, not real yields, nominal ones. So that's before you adjust for inflation. You can go right to the Treasury's interest rate website and you can see it in March. People say, well, that's not true. That never happened. They're telling us. Yeah. Yes, it did happen. Oil, Monday, minus $37 a barrel at one point. Minus. I was ready to buy a futures contract and take delivery.
Right.
At $7 a barrel. What do you think about that? That kind of stuff never happens. And what people are saying, well, it's the virus. And granted, all these stay-at-home orders and all that stuff, that has certainly disrupted economic activity. But let's look at it from the glass half full side. If you look at the number of people, and there's been millions, what's up to like 26,400,000 have been laid off, lost their work in the last 4 or 5 weeks. Huge, never happened before. Right. So, but think about all the people that are still working. And I live next to Interstate 80. All I see is Federal Express and UPS trucks. Right. People are spending money like crazy. It's just not being spent at your local merchant, saved for a couple of places, chains and that kind of stuff that have stayed open because they sell groceries and that kind of stuff. Yeah. People have shifted a lot of their spending. And when they're saying, well, what are retail sales going to look like? What's GDP going to look like? Well, and this is the thing, retail sales, they're going to drop. They would drop anyway just because of the price of gas. Remember, they're calculated in dollars. So gas has dropped by what? A third? Probably on average, close to 40% maybe for the country. So that piece of retail sales is going to drop. Whether people spent the same amount or drove the same amount, I should say, I'm sorry, or not, but people haven't been driving as much. So that, I mean, that's going to crater. And you've got oil piling up everywhere as a piece of that. So yeah, I mean, there has definitely been a distinct disruption because of what's been going on with this bug. Here's the thing: this stuff was going to happen anyway, and that's what I think is going to be hard for people to wrap their heads around. Not the stock market so much, although that's kind of part of it too. But this whole thing with the debt, and if you remember from back last fall, they were talking about a $1.3 trillion, $1.4 trillion deficit this year, and that was before any of this started. So, you know, and that was higher than what we've been seeing. So this might have kicked it along the curve, an extra year or two to where we would have been if we had, not had this situation. But this was coming anyway, and so this is what you see at the terminal end of a money system that's not backed by anything, and that's what we have. And here's the thing: so everybody's like deficit spending. Okay, think about this. So Keynes wrote in 1936. What did we have in 1936 that we don't have now?
A gold standard.
Exactly. How can you deficit spend under a metallic standard? You'll waste your reserve, right?
Right.
You'll squander your reserve.
Right.
And that's exactly what happened to us. The only reason it didn't happen sooner was because of World War II. Otherwise, we would have they devalued in 33. Keynes wrote in 36. We entered the war in 41. We exited the war in 45. The 50s were fantastic. The 60s, and then the cookie jar was gone. The piggy bank.
I remember the 70s.
So we had a war. 71, August 15th. So we left the metal standard. We left the backing of something. And ever since then, if you take a look at all of these charts, the national debt, M3, all of these, they all started going up right after we jumped off the gold backing. So what I think is going to happen next, and this might be digital, there might not be a paper equivalent of this one, but I think what you're going to see is some kind of a metallic backed currency is going to emerge out of this. I'm not sure where or who. The Russians have plenty of gold. The Chinese have plenty of gold. Do they work together? Do they destroy each other trying to get the supremacy? I don't know. I don't know how that turns out. But that people are going to be looking for something that has meaning.
What I don't understand is, I'm sorry. I'm sorry for interrupting you. Well, what I don't understand is that most of the people that are serving in Congress and the Senate have pretty high education levels, relatively speaking. I mean, they're not high school dropouts or anything like that. And most of them are relatively well-read. Not all of them, but many of them are. There are ones like that do have a very constitutional flavor and ideal rather, and yet just thinking of the demographics, if you will, of the Senate and of the Congress, you would think there would be an absolute uproar in Congress. I mean, there would always be some saying, "Oh yeah, let's give trillions of dollars away to everybody, and everyone will be happy." But there has to be a very large. You'd think there'd be a large contingency of senators or congressmen that are saying, "Hey, this is crazy," and they would want the mic in front of the TV saying, "This is going downhill. We're all gonna drown in this," but they're cheering it on. I mean, they're passing these bills on by the trillions at one clip, and they're applauding it. Now, if you take I'm going to pick on the Republicans for a minute. Not that I think one is better than the other, but if you read the Republican stance on how to run a government, it's pretty libertarian, actually. You know, it's very conservative and libertarian. There's a few things in there that I disagree with, but there's most of it I do agree with it. But when they vote contrary to what they swore that they would fight for. And I don't understand. It's like this total, you can't believe anyone. There may be a couple that'll speak up, but they won't give them any airtime. So you just hear all the cheerleaders. Now, you can have cheerleaders if they're a small minority, but here we have the cheerleaders are a vast majority voting in trillions of dollars worth of debt that now our president let it slip out the bag. They say, well, we'll allow the population to pay these trillions of dollars back over time. He said this in his speech. I couldn't believe he said that because, you know, people have no money. They say, well, all this $1 trillion and now I have to pay it back. Bingo. You know, I'll be honest with you. I am totally lost. Totally. I don't know where to go from here.
Well, here's the thing. And we talked about this many, many times. What it was going to look like. Remember this? What's it going to look like when this credit-driven economy hits the wall? That's what happened here.
Yeah.
Now, we didn't get the reason right. We were thinking it would be economic or financial or resource constraint or something along those lines. This kind of came out of left field. But that's what happened, this whole credit. And now this is the consequence of having an entire economy, every level, top to bottom, loaded with debt. Nobody can live without it. So what has to happen? We have to, take on even more debt to fix the problem that was caused by the old debt. And we're gonna pay this back over time. This will not get paid back. We will continue to sell our property in this country to foreigners, which we've been doing for quite a long time now. Some of the most expensive buildings in New York City are owned by foreigners.
Right.
The Chinese being one that jumps right to the top of the list.
Yeah, Trump is one of them. Trump is one of them. He's one of the foreigners.
Oh. Well, you know, I don't go there. I stick to policy, but that's going to continue because how else are we going to pay? How else are we going to pay this back? Trillions. We have no national savings. The average person has a negative net worth, so their liabilities are greater than their assets.
You know,
how are we going to pay this back?
But you know,
we're going to see.
The few times the few times that I have addressed this with people that I know that have college educations, you know what their answer is? Oh, don't worry, Trump will make America great again. And I look at them and say, you know, that would only be in a movie. You would say that in a movie. You wouldn't say that in real life. You know, I don't say that out loud, but my mind says that. Anyway, you said you wanted to keep this to 20 minutes. I want you to know that 20 minutes is about that, but please, you have all time. You have all my time. You can stay here all night. It's fine with me, but I just want to let you know that. Okay?
Yeah, I know we're getting close. No, I wish it was that simple that we could, but here's the thing. It took us 71 to 21. That's 50
right.
years coming up.
That's right.
Without a back for our currency, and so we've been committing the economic sins all this time, and it's really starting to pile up now. Now we're trying to figure out how to avoid the punishment that comes with what we've done. Yeah. You know, we had our hand in the cookie jar. Mom walks into the kitchen and she's got that wooden spoon in her hand. I remember that.
Oh, you had that. You got that too.
Yeah. My hand's still in the cookie jar, and the spoon's coming, and now it's like, all right, how do I get out of this? And this is what's going on right now. Yeah. And it's not here. It's only here. France, Spain, Italy, Greece, Portugal, all these other, the UK, all these, Australia, all these other countries are in the same boat we are because we all embraced the same economic policy,
Yeah.
which was, if you have it, spend it. And if you don't have it, spend even more. That's basically what Keynesian. We can sum that whole treatise down to those two sentences. If you have it, spend it. If you don't, spend more.
Right.
And that's basically what we're seeing playing out here. And if you speak out against it, well, then you're against helping families.
Right.
And that's why.
Don't you love that logic? I love that logic. You're so mean.
If we really wanted to help people 50 years ago, we should have tightened the belt up and stayed on the gold standard.
Absolutely.
And if we'd have managed to do that, if we'd have done that, we wouldn't have this problem, or at least not as bad.
Yeah.
I mean, I know they were devaluing it hard, especially into the end. It was a $20, 1 to 20, and by the time it ended, it was the 1 to 75. So I mean, they were devaluing that through that whole stretch, but at least there was something behind it. Here's the kicker: talk to the average person. Most people think that there still is something behind it, and there's not. It's just that's the fact.
Yeah.
My 20 minutes is up.
Okay. Well, every country, just every major country has been through this. So we have plenty of historic presidents. France has been through this. I mean, in more current times, France has been, Spain, Portugal has been through it, England, everyone's been through this. So it's not
Russia,
something that,
yeah.
well, geez, Russia, obviously, yeah. The fall of the wall, you name it. And small countries have been through this that we don't even know about because they're a small country and no one cares and everyone just starves to death. And you would think that some would say, hey, Bob, they've tried this 23 times, never had a success. Why are we going to be successful? No one asked a question. But could you come back next week and we'll do another program and we'll extend this conversation, okay? All right. Well, I want to thank you so much. I'm sorry.
Oh, in the meantime, I'm going to repost that chart with the timelines for the currencies on the blog again. So
okay, that'll be great.
Yeah.
Okay.
We're doing a thing on risk every couple of days. We're analyzing a different aspect of risk. So far we've done interest rate and default risk. So we're getting there.
Okay.
We've got a long way to go. So, thank you. I appreciate you having me on.
Okay. Thank you so much, Andy. Take care. We'll see you again. Right. Folks, this is the end of today's broadcast. We'd like to thank our sponsors for the financial support, and we'd like to thank you for listening in. You can further the cause of liberty by recommending this program to your friends. And let us hear from you. Our email address is comments@libertytalkradio.com. Until next time, stay well, stay tuned.